Alright, what I got here is an F-150 6-speed transmission, and it's having the problem of it won't start. And the reason is it doesn't know what gear it's in, so it's a pretty common problem with these. The 6-speed transmission of these is pretty solid. It's a good transmission, but it has its Achilles heel, which is the molded lead frame. It's like the internal harness that controls, like, or it monitors like the fluid temperature, the turbine shaft speed, and it also controls the transmission range selector. So there's a lot of sensors integrated into this molded lead frame, and it is notoriously problematic. The good news is pretty easy to fix, you know, if you put a little sweat equity into it. So we're going to take care of that now. A lot of these used to be on a recall for like a sudden downshift. Like you'd be cruising along the highway and then it would like suddenly downshift, sometimes down into first gear, and it would get stuck there. Same problem, so we're going to take care of that today. Alright, now that I got this up in the air, first step, obviously, we got to take our pan off. So all these little 8mm bolts got to come out. I usually try to take out these back ones first and then work my way forward so that the pan dips down and it makes as little mess as possible. Some of them have a little drain plug on them. If it does, fantastic. If you really want to get crazy, you can take out the dipstick and draw fluid out if you have like a vacuum pump, but I'm just gonna pull the bolts and drain it. Okay, so I got most of these bolts out. I got my drain pan to catch it. I'm not going to be reusing the transmission fluid, but I'm going to catch it so I know about how much to put back in. But it hasn't started leaking yet, and that's because this gasket acts kind of like a glue and holds them together. So I'm going to pry down on it a little bit, just until it starts leaking out, and then I can catch it, because if you take out too many of them, then eventually that gasket's gonna let go and it's gonna drop the pan and make a huge mess. So I'm gonna let it trickle down, catch it, avoid making a big mess. It's gonna get all over your exhaust pipe. There's no getting around that. So it is what it is. And there we go. The pan is off. And you know, the fluid's dark, but that's kind of expected for 100,000 miles. Not a whole lot of crap on the magnets. So I'd say that's fine. So now pull this under a little more, and this filter just kind of pops out. So try to catch as much of it as you can. Now we gotta disconnect the harness, which is up there. It's just this little lever. Let's see if I can squeeze my hand in and get to it. I can pop that up, yeah, all the way, and then pull it out. And then got this little tab, there's a little hook on the back of it. You gotta press that, then pull this connector down. And ideally you would have the battery disconnected when you do this, just so it doesn't throw codes or anything when you're trying to put it back together. But now I gotta get some pliers, pull that little filter housing out. So we're gonna reach back, grab a hold of, get out of the way. Grab a hold of that little filter housing and see if we can't pull it out. Now this can fight you if the car's been running for 100,000 miles without a service. So come on. All right, stand by. All right, I finally got to start wiggling loose. So come back here. I usually just kind of reach behind this cross member with some extra long pliers and grab it, and then just kind of wiggle it until it comes out. There we go. Now on here there's going to be some e-torques, and they're slightly different. So you're going to look for some that are slightly wider, like this, for instance. You got a little one and you got a big one. You're going to want to take out all the big ones. So there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So, yeah, get all them out. And then the valve body will come down, and there's going to be a part that's going to fall out. 2 of them, actually. You can see one right there, but that might stay in place. But there's going to be a little blue capsule thing with a spring, so keep an eye out for that when that falls down. Alright, there we go. So I got those 3 torques. I think it's a 20 torque, T20. And then there's 5 running across here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there's 3 here. 1, 2, 3. So you got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 right there. I left this one in kind of loose because that's when I'm going to drop this pan, or drop this main control. And I don't know if I can find a place to put my phone to record it. There we go. One more. Oh my. And you can get dripped on a lot, but that's just how it goes. This is that little springy thing I mentioned. And your gasket, it may stay in there, it may fall down, so if it falls down, no big deal. But if it wants to stay put, let it stay put. So we're going to take this over to the bench, dripping the trail the whole way. Alright, now that we got our valve body out, we can take off the molded lead frame. So we're going to need an E27, I'm sorry, a T27 torques, torque wrench, the Makita. So, what went wrong with this one? It's this part right here. This is the transmission range sensor, and everything's kind of connected into one giant plastic harness. So you got 2 speed sensors up there and right there. In here you have your temperature sensor, and then connectors for all your solenoids right there. So it's all one big part, and there's 6 torch heads that are connecting it all. So let's get them off. So you can look at the back to know which ones you take out. So I got 2 there, 2 there, and then 2 here. These 2. And then you got these 2 here. bit when it fell off. T27 is only anyway. These two. And then these two. So, there's 6 of them. Roll straight up on it. And these are a pretty common problem with the 6-speeds. Like I said, the 6-speed transmission is pretty great. This is just its weakness. And it's a pretty common issue. A lot of times, sometimes the sensors will get messed up, or in this case, this sensor. Sometimes the transmission fluid sensor, but most often it's this one is the problem. And it's something about the wiring inside these. They had a quality control issue when they were making them, so they redesigned it, revised it, and if you replace this, you're good to go. Bag. I have this strange little felt piece, okay. And this is in your new lead frame. Damn, son, you building over here? Ah. Sorry about that, gentlemen. People like to come by and talk to me when I'm recording. Anyway, as I was saying, this little felt piece slips in over your solenoid connector. And then you're going to take this and just press it straight back down. There's 2 little dowel pins right there and right there to help you line it up. You're going to want to make sure this guy, your range sensor, needs to fit on top of your manual valve here. So what I mean, once I get this on, so if you look in the manual valve area there, you got to make sure the range sensor sits over the manual valve in that little groove in it. Like that. Man, keep getting interrupted. I'm so popular. Alright, so we're going to be putting in the little screws here. inch-pounds? 53 inch-pounds. 53 inch-pounds. Cool. And now it's time to put this thing back in the car. Alright. Sorry about the horrendous camera angle, but it's the best I can do tonight here. So remember this little guy? This has to go in before we put in the valve body, and it goes in the big hole right there. Now, the problem is it just falls right out. So by the time you try to get the valve body in, you put this in, this tends to just drop out. That's the problem. So get yourself some assembly glue. Dollop of that on there. Just rub it on this. And this assembly glue, once it gets hot, it'll melt and dissolve and just disappear. It's not going to gum up anything. Once you have your assembly glue on, jam that in, smear it around so it'll hold it in place. And now if you leave that long enough, it will still fall out, so kind of got to hurry at this point. Put your valve body on, making sure to get your control valve here in the slot for your manual valve. And double check your gasket bearers in place. Once you get two bolts kind of started, do a double check, make sure the control valve is lined up, and it's home in there. And I'll show you close up here in a second of what that should look like. You have your manual valve riding in a groove. Turn on the light. You got your manual valve from the valve body, and there's a pin holding this sensor to it. And then on the other side, you have your shift linkage pin. So this manual valve is held in place by two sides. This is your shift valve, or your shift lever, and your transmission range sensor. Now, just put all your bolts back in, just kind of hand tight for now, and then we're going to do a torque sequence on it and then carry on from there. Alright, and I should also mention that there were 3 rubber seals in the transmission case behind the valve body. Sometimes when you pull the valve body out, the seals will be stuck to it. Those seals are reusable if they're not damaged. Just make sure they go in the right slot when you put it back in. They're kind of color coded, like green, blue, red, that sort of thing. So in my case, they were still in the transmission, which is most likely what's going to happen with you. In which case, just leave it. It's fine. Anyway, now I gotta torque down all these in a specific pattern. I have it pulled up on the computer. So these are going to be 71 inch-pounds. to go. The customer wanted a new filter put on, so I don't see why not. Nothing wrong with that. And if you're already this far in, you might as well throw in a new filter. So. Okay, and got the new filter. This kind of stuffs in there. It kind of holds in place with friction. And if this just keeps falling out on you, you can leave it out until you're ready to put the pan on. Now, got to put in this little guy. So, this little tube for the harness needs to get pressed in from the outside, and there's a little dowel pin. Focus, you bitch. Alright, there we go. So there's a little pin in there, so this can only sit in one way. So I go from behind the cross member here and press it in from that side. So kind of spin it around until you find where it clicks into place. There it is. And then you gotta press it. And this is kind of a pain in the ass to do. And it fights you, so sometimes I'll get in the back of here with like a rubber mallet handle, just kind of shove it in that way. So I'm gonna try that. All right, it took me long enough, but I finally got it. These retaining clips for this guy can fight you. You have to push that all the way in before it can lock. So I got it. Time to put this connector back on. I just kind of rotate it until you can feel it slide in. Lock it in. Alright. Alright. And now, just got to put the pan back on. And that's pretty much it. Alright, so now I got the pan all torqued down, cleaned up my exhaust pipe as best I could. You're not going to get all of it. It's just going to have to burn off. Everything's connected, so now all I got to do is reconnect the battery. I drained that bucket to see how much fluid I lost. It was about 6 quarts, so I'm going to throw in 6 more quarts of Mercon LV. Also, you can reuse a pan gasket if it's not damaged. So yeah, once I get that all done, I'm going to hop up in there, clear the codes, and then after I put in my 6 quarts, I'm going to have to start it up, warm it up, bring this up to temperature so I can adjust the fluid to where it should be. And I think on this one, it's supposed to be at the top of the B mark right there. So yeah, after that, you're done. All right, this should be the last step. Let's see if we got, there we go, show and park. That's good enough. So, got to clear all the codes I set in this and then fire it up. Once it's up to temperature, we will adjust the fluid level one more time and call it good. All right, we got our codes cleared out. We're gonna see if we can't get this thing to start. Look at that. Wonderful. All right, so now the last thing I have to do is bring the transmission up to temperature so that I can do one final check of the fluid level, because it has to be hot when you do it, about 180 degrees, something like that. So we're gonna bring the transmission up to temperature, and a way to do that without driving it If you do it right, it's fine. Now what we're gonna do is, first I'm gonna check. All right, yeah, it's going into gears and it's indicating that on the dash. Wasn't doing that before. So we're gonna put it in gear, foot firm on the brake, and we're just gonna bring up the RPM a little bit. Do this for about 5-8 seconds, something like that. And we're gonna let off the brake. We're gonna let it cool down for about a minute or so. And what that does is it's a stall test, and it generates a lot of heat in the torque converter. So if you do it too aggressively, you could actually pop the welds on torque converter and like burn it up. You could just let this thing come up to temperature normally, but that could take, you know, 30-40 minutes, something like that. So about every minute or so, we're gonna just bring up the RPM a bit and then let it back down. And then once that's up, we're gonna put it back into park, get outside and check the fluid level. And we are done. All right, I'll catch you guys next time.